The date is August 22nd, 2023. You're scrolling through YouTube and you come across the live-action release trailer for a new sci-fi RPG game by the name of Starfield. Fans of prior Bethesda games and regular sci-fi game enjoyers alike rejoiced as Bethesda prepared to launch their newest addition to the RPG genre. A few short months later, on September 6, 2023, Bethesda Game Studios announced the official release of Starfield on Xbox and PC. As you'll come to see over this 10-part series, the fan hype that followed the game's troubled development and release, coupled with some ill-placed remarks from the game's director, Todd Howard, left some massively big shoes to fill. It turns out that touting your new game as Skyrim in space leaves your customers with some high expectations. Come along with me as we do a deep dive into what makes Starfield both a good and bad game. My name is Sass, and this is the Last Starfield Review. The game opens in a similar fashion to prior Bethesda games such as Elder Scrolls and the Fallout series, of which I will often reference throughout this review. It's immediately obvious what feelings that Todd was attempting to reference during this opening scene. In previous Bethesda games, such as Skyrim, your initial introduction to the game is a life-and-death situation, escaping your captors and the fire-breathing dragon wreaking havoc upon the town of Helgen. The game did a good job of setting the stage for the decision-based branching storyline that Bethesda has become well known for, by allowing you to choose between two of the game's factions for your starting point of the story. Sadly, we do not get the same kind of introduction in Starfield, as the intro to this game features a very slow, meandering walk through the day in the life as a Dusty. You are not in any immediate danger and are simply about to start your second day of work for the mining corporation by the name of Argos. This is very much unlike previous Bethesda games. You aren't thrown into the action after narrowly avoiding death or treated to a flashy cutscene with stellar voiceover performance from Ron Perlman circa Fallout 3. No, instead we are gifted with the bestower of great wisdom, the Argos supervisor, Lynn. The other fairly forgettable character you will meet during the intro is Lynn's second-in-command, Heller, who despite his attempt at wit and snark comes off more so as the annoying know-it-all and less so as the charming rogue they were attempting to portray. I understand what they are attempting to do with these characters. The no-nonsense lady boss who tries just a bit too hard to be one of the guys, and the plucky yet reliable right-hand man whose knowledge of rocks would make even the greatest geologist blush. Being that these are the first characters you meet, it doesn't bode well for future interactions with other characters, as even the most memorable in the game will have to work hard to stick into your memory. It doesn't help that shortly after the character creation screen, and some more monotonous slow walking, you're whisked away on an adventure to the other side of the galaxy and will likely forget all about her. Consistently throughout the intro is a smattering of small talk amongst the crew, and some little things perked my interest in the discussions between Heller and Lynn about other planets that they had been to. But overall, the intro is fairly uneventful, and doesn't reveal as much about the setting of Starfield. Compared to previous games that used the intro to immerse the player in the setting, factions, and lore of the world that you were about to inhabit for the next 200 hours. Honestly, this is par for the course amongst most of the game overall, with no single system or aspect of the game standing out, but rather being swiftly introduced and then forgotten, blending in with the rest of the murky gray mush that makes up Starfield and its parts. Now, this may sound like I didn't enjoy Starfield or have fun playing it. On the contrary, Starfield is an amalgamation of what constitutes modern-day fun. It feeds the little dopamine gremlin in the back of your brain, with just enough excitement and action to keep you coming back, but not quite enough to satiate you and leave you feeling like you spent your time wisely. Starfield also cripples itself right from the very beginning, offering a multitude of conversation options with the different characters. However, your choices are nebulous and only prove to be the prompt for another information dump. Unlike in Skyrim, where your initial decisions during the intro will send you on a path to glory with one of the game's factions, here we are railroaded into a singular decision, forcing you to accept the invitation to join the fabled explorers group, Constellation, a sort of pseudo-NASA meets Indiana Jones adventuring party. Even if you select the option to refuse, the game just pushes you out the door, and your personal wants and needs are completely ignored in favor of jump-starting the story. This instantly takes all the agency away from the player, turning them into a spectator, riding along for this journey through space, hoping that at some point a decision you make will actually be impactful. We are given a fairly rushed rundown on basic laser mining etiquette and sent to collect some minerals from a nearby cavern. The 30 seconds I spend cutting rocks with the laser is the extent of my tutorial, besides a few obvious pop-ups. Curiously, it didn't include anything about focusing the beam using aim-down sights to do more damage. A simple tactic that you will likely stumble upon randomly, like I did, but there's no actual prompt telling me to do so. This is very much how Starfield likes to introduce you to a new system. They give you all the tools and about 70% of the instruction and expect you to just figure out the rest. Now don't get me wrong, I am not a fan of hand-holding in games, where that feeling of an invisible hand pushing you towards certain objectives becomes overbearing and irritating. I had a lot of fun learning all the ins and outs of Skyrim and Fallout, but they made sure to clearly introduce you to the systems and controls right away, so you never feel like you've missed or forgotten something. The amount of extra time spent mining a single rock is minimal until you realize how much time will be spent mining rocks in this game. This also introduces a very tedious and boring habit of Starfield: slow walking dialogue. Where nothing is really happening here, we are just listening to the banter of NPCs with no real connection to the story moving forward. I am also using a keyboard control that, again, is not shown to you. Pressing cap locks to keep myself slow walking at a consistent pace, otherwise this entire section and any other follow me sections of the game would have my character jerkily popping forward every few feet to be able to hear the conversation, yet not go running past at top speed. There are two speeds in Starfield, Mach 10 and Snail. On the flip side, more than once I found myself slow walking and assuming to be over-encumbered, only to realize later that my fat fingers had merely hit an unintended key again. Once we have collected enough minerals to curb my ever-growing crack addiction, we can return to Lynn for another meandering walk over to Heller to discuss the next step in our mission. For all of its faults, the tutorial section of the game does a good job of highlighting exactly what you can expect from Starfield. It's just too bad that what it decided to highlight are most of its faults. This is all too common of an issue that rears its ugly head in modern gaming: monotony. Now, I am aware that being a rock miner on a distant planet where my official title is Dusty sounds like a pretty monotonous life that is meant to contrast the fantasy sci-fi adventure that you're about to embark on. But there's a way to do this without making the player feel impatient. It's become a well-known fact in gaming history that escort quests with slow or dumb NPCs are the bane of any gamer's existence, and this is no exception. All of this is happening before we have even gotten to the character creation screen, which we will discuss in part 2. I was shocked at how much of the intro was spent on pointless walking, and it's not over. There's more to come after the character creation. Many games have used this slow walk through a scene to varying degrees of success in the past, and it can be very effective for setting the mood of a scene while allowing the player to keep control of the character. Again, the intro scene of Skyrim comes to mind, where you are essentially watching a cutscene play out as your fellow wagon riders are beheaded and you are told to step forward to begin creating your character. The dragon attack on Helgen easily could have been precluded by a long 5-minute walk towards the city where you mine some iron ore along the way, and listen to the other captives grumble about their various aches and pains. Of course, this would have been extremely monotonous and boring. Instead, during the wait, we get to learn about some of the other captives, some of which will play a large part in the story ahead. We learn a brief overview about the state of the world and the most recent events that likely led us to be in this situation. The best part about Skyrim's introduction is that it is delivered with an air of sadness and finality, like a dead man making his final speech. The range of emotions you get from Skyrim's opening scene makes it hard to imagine how the same studios managed to make both games. But enough about great games of old. We are here to talk about Starfield. Our first interaction with the MacGuffins of the Starfield universe happens when you are sent into a dark cavern that is throwing off strange anomalies and readings on Heller's scanners. We get a nod to another great sci-fi IP with Heller dropping his version of I got a bad feeling about this. As you were told to enter the cavern and collect the strange artifact that Lynn was instructed to retrieve for one of the constellation's explorers. We slowly move towards this shining green chunk of metal as we get our first inciting incident, introducing us to the mystery of Starfield's story and setting our hero on their journey. All that's left is to reach out and touch it. Well, that's it for Chapter 1. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel to receive notifications on the next installment of the Last Starfield review. We'll see you next time. Happy hunting, explorers.